What makes a Pokémon a Pokémon? Although ultimately it's whatever Game Freak says is a Pokémon, there are a few character design rules to help make a Pokémon look like a Pokémon. Under this assumption, then this means that those design rules can change, and what better time to change them than a reboot? Here we are at the third and final part of this dive into the art of Pokémon. As a bit of fun research, I recommended earlier for you to watch the video by Jocat talking about how to design a Pokémon. Just in case you didn't, I'll summarize the most relevant part now. Although no one outside of Game Freak knows for sure what the list of rules are for designing a Pokémon, that list probably looks something like this. Number 1. Pick a creature or object, real or fictional. Number 2. Give it an element, which sometimes determines the color of the Pokémon. Number 3, add facial features. Number 4, add 1 to 2 features usually not seen on that creature or object naturally. Fully evolved Pokémon or legendaries might have 3 to 4, but no more than that. There are very few Pokémon that fall outside these rules, so it's very fair to say that Jocat could be spot on here. When you combine all this with the chosen art style and current graphics I talked about in parts 1 and 2, you can see how Pokémon got to where it is today. Even when you look at Pokémon created by the fan community, or Fakemon, the ones that look like they just came straight out of the actual games follow these rules. Whether the artist was aware of these rules or not when creating them, they just naturally fit right in. So, with that in mind, let's talk about character design. Just as the art style and graphics of Pokémon has changed over time, so too could these rules have adjusted. Although Pokémon throughout the generations could generally fit into these rules, the approach to them may have had some twists and turns. For the very first generation, when they took an animal, some of them hardly changed at all. Seal, Goldeen, and Weedle are just real-life animals with a horn stuck on their head. Ponyta is a normal-looking pony, but with its mane set on fire. Raticate is just a cartoon rat. You can see that along with their rough and wild look, they are heavily based on their source material. And don't get me wrong here, I really liked this approach to designing fantastical creatures. Look at Ponyta, it's perfect. I believe a part of the extreme appeal of the first generation was because a lot of them were recognizable as real animals, but made different. These days, whatever inspiration they take, they give it that anime or plushy style, and then they go through the rest of the rules. As Jocat talked about in his video, there are people in the Pokémon community that want to see Pokémon undergo an update to their design, to something that is more up-to-date with modern games. Under the banner of a reboot, this is a great idea. If Pokémon doesn't do a reboot, this is a terrible idea. If you change the look of the newer Pokémon too much, then the old ones don't fit in anymore. You can update them to fit the newer style, but now you have a lot of angry people who liked the way they were. So let's pretend, like the rest of my videos, that they are going to do a reboot. Well, there is a risk that the new era of Pokémon might not feel like Pokémon anymore. I believe a big part of why Pokémon has always had to march on with new generations instead of attempting a reboot is because the investor overlords would never allow that gamble. Pikachu, in its current, very popular form, makes them a lot of money. There are parades based on that thing. However, as I talked about in my Pokémon for Adults video, should the franchise start to decline for any reason, then they may get desperate enough to do a reboot. In that event, even though all the past Pokémon would be thrown away, a number of them, such as Pikachu and any other major moneymaker, would quickly see a return to the franchise. Over time, even the less popular ones would likely return, but with an updated visual look, hopefully to something even more appealing. However, this game design study is about exploring the what if, not the what's most likely. What if Game Freak does a reboot? What could the new character design rules be? The guidelines to creating a Pokémon could be whatever we want. We could change it to have Pokémon look more like the animals they were inspired from with that rough, wild, and slightly realistic twist. We could make it be two different animals mashed together, like in Avatar: The Last Airbender, but with an added element. Or even just completely alien designs with nothing familiar about them, but yet maintain a plushie-like design. If I was in charge of the team creating a new era of Pokemon, the first thing I would do is have this discussion. Throw away the old, really explore the options, and then probably land back at a very similar place to where it is now. Like I mentioned, we want Pokemon to feel like Pokemon, and those old rules are a big part of that. For some perspective, let's make everyone's favorite comparison, Digimon. What makes a Digimon? At a glance, the designs vary wildly, but we can see a lot of patterns. In general, Digimon really lean into a monstrous type of design. Instead of taking an animal and making modifications, it's more like they take the concept of an animal and then really add a lot of changes and details. At their weakest forms, they tend to be simple blob-like creatures. Going a level up, a lot of them tend towards a bipedal design, standing on two legs. Obviously not always, but quite a lot of them. Then, as they get more powerful, not only do they get much bigger in size, but the amount of extra features added onto them is immense. Way more than any Pokemon would ever have. Lots of fangs, claws, metal bits, armor, and even weapons like missiles. To give another quick example, Yokai Watch has creatures that are based on actual yokai, and then it goes through a round of anime-ifying it so that it fits into a game for children. Without the creatures being based on Japanese spirits, you couldn't say they looked a part of Yokai Watch. So the bad news is, if we were to change the design rules of Pokemon too much, they risk becoming a whole different franchise, limiting what avenues can be explored to discover new potentials for Pokemon. The good news is, for a design team creating the new era, like I talked about in parts 1 and 2 of this dive into the art of Pokemon, art style and graphics are a part of the discussion, a part of discovering those new potentials. We would explore brand new art styles and graphical techniques that could take things into entirely new directions for Pokemon despite the rules remaining the same. Now, if I was to explore changing these rules, making decisions, and seeing what we came up with, unfortunately, whatever I choose, I can't really demonstrate here. Like I said in part 1, I'm not a character designer or artist, but I think it would be fun and very educational to create Pokemon and redesign old ones to a new criteria, to see that process in action. I just don't have the skill. However, fortunately, there is a massive resource of these new Pokemon all over the internet. I want to shout out to all the artists out there who create Fakemon. There are so many amazing designs of creatures that I would just love to have in my Pokédex. These illustrations and designs really put a lot of what is found in the games to shame. Game Freak should absolutely be looking through what the community has done and pay any artist they like the work of to use them. The creators of Temtem did exactly that with Platypet. Unfortunately, the opposite is true. In an interview with Junichi Masuda, the person responsible for a lot of the music you hear in the games, revealed that the people who designed the Pokemon are not allowed to look at Fakemon, lest it influences their work. This is really sad in my opinion. I think a huge amount of inspiration and love for Pokemon is lost in that deal. But even if they could and indeed did use the work of fan-made material, still not everyone is going to be satisfied with whatever comes. No matter what roster Game Freak comes up with, there will always be something in there that people don't like. On the other hand, a common saying in the Pokemon community is that every Pokemon is someone's favorite. So I guess there is even something to be said in favor of Game Freak's current designs. They must be doing something right because Pokemon is still the largest franchise on the planet. Personally, I hope that one day their policy will change and that all that love from the community will turn Pokemon from pocket toys back into pocket monsters. If you want an example of how divided the community is on whether things should change or not, maybe you will find it in the comments to this video. If not, get it started. Let everyone know what you like about what was, is, and what could be the designs for Pokemon. Thank you for watching, and a super massive thank you to New Frame Plus and Jocat for unwittingly helping me with this topic. You should totally check out their other videos, they are super awesome. I really like the one Jocat did on Klonoa too, go watch that. If you got this far, hit the like button and the bell awesome. A lot of effort goes into making these videos, so if you enjoyed my work at all, to keep up with my videos, subscribe to my channel, because the YouTube algorithm is not a friendly beast most of the time. Also, bonus, it really makes my Wooloo incredibly happy when people do that. So, continue to be wonderful, and I'll see you next time. Okay, I can't hold it in anymore. Why isn't Honey On a thing? Designed by @Willowisps on Twitter, this bug type evolution is the best thing I've ever seen. Look at this adorable face, it's perfect. Give me this, please. I would buy every game you could obtain it in. I love it, I want it, I need it. Alright, I feel better now. Since this is the end of the art saga of my series, it is finally time to thank Mochi Artworks for illustrating my avatar. I love it so much. Being able to represent myself on the screen in this fashion is not only an enjoyable process in and of itself, but it brings these videos to life more than my real-life face could have ever accomplished. Since this was just a short episode, I thought I would show a little behind-the-scenes work of how my avatar functions. So, as a programmer, I built myself a little character customizer using Unity. When Mochi gives me the Photoshop file with all the variations of pieces, such as different mouths, eyes, hand gestures, and so on, they all come in on different layers. Unity has in its package manager a Photoshop document importer that turns those layers into different sprites that I can then use to turn into game objects. I've coded in a way to have my editor generate buttons based on those layers so that if she makes more expressions for me in the future, they will be given a button automatically and I can just use it straight away. It took a little bit to figure out the details of how we were going to design and make my avatar, but once we got the look right, we just built it like an artist would for a light novel video game character. Once I have selected all the bits I want for myself, I just have to press the big print button at the top and Unity will generate for me a 1920 by 1080 PNG with a transparent background that is ready to simply drop into a video. Silver Stitch has a copy of this program so they can just make a new avatar with the exact right expression in just a few seconds. I honestly can't tell you just how bizarrely fun it is to customize myself like this. It's both weird and delightful. And that's it. Thank you, thank you, thank you, Mochi. I love you and your work so much, and I wish you all the best. Cheers.